previous video about how language can affect us, how it can trigger anxiety, and also ways in which we can potentially reduce our anxiety, which is what we all want, right? Especially now. So yeah, so just to kind of follow on really from what I was talking about before, for example, like today I saw again many breaking news, you know, headlines where it's like breaking news and it's like on a red background and it's like bold type and capital letters, things like that. And honestly, scrolling through, I would say none of it was breaking, honestly speaking. It was recycled news, it was updates from maybe 3 days ago, which is showing up in news feeds. It's old news, it's fake news. So yeah, not breaking. So I just want you to consider that when you see that. I did mention that before, but I also want you to think about from an NLP perspective, so neuro-linguistic programming, because we can, you know, we can program our minds and we rewire our brains, and, you know, and the way that we think. And language is such a an incredible tool, you know, and for positive changes, but unfortunately it can have negative effects as well. But yeah, I mean, a little NLP tip really for things like breaking news, just rename it. Just think, if you called it news, or if you called it fake news, or if you called it recent news, if you called it latest news, or yeah, as I just said before, just news, that's it. And if you had it in like small letters, you know, if you had it in different colours, which are not red and bold type, if you had it in a different font, just, you know, if you just take a few moments to kind of imagine that in your mind, you'll see the different effect it has. It desensitizes it. But yeah, that's interesting. So another few things I've seen today, actually, kind of both London related. So I'm from London myself. One is, you know, the looting in London has begun. So like, again, massive capital letters in bold type, lots of exclamation marks. This was someone, and I saw this post get shared a few times, but this was someone who had shared some pictures actually of not like recent ones. It was proved that it was a robbery of a supermarket a while ago, which, by the way, robberies have always happened in London, just FYI, so it's not even like the faintest bit of news. It's not like suddenly there's a robbery because there's coronavirus. You know, robberies have always happened, haven't they, right? But yeah, you know, so looting in London has begun, again, which was fake news, but by then the damage has been done because people have seen that headline and kind of panicked. And, you know, why would you share that? Just don't share things like that. Just be mindful about sharing things. Just check as well your news source, you know, before you're actually sharing things. Just check if they're reliable news sources or not. Something else is, you know, there's been quite a lot of headlines about London, you know, being the worst affected place in the UK. And been kind of seeing that a lot as well, like in capital letters and like a million exclamation marks everywhere, like London is the worst. Well, the thing is, do you know how many people live in London? 9 million or thereabouts, the last time I tried to count. But I think Birmingham and Manchester have maybe almost 3 million, something like that. I don't really know the figures. What I'm trying to say is, we've got millions and millions of people that live in London, like millions. Obviously, we're like 3 times bigger than other huge cities. So this fact of like London's got the most cases, yeah, it does. It just makes sense, right? It's not, again, it's not a shocking headline. Like, I don't really understand why that would even warrant being a breaking news shocking headline. You know, let's think about things sensibly here. Yes, so also something else that I've been seeing a lot is the UK or PM might enforce a UK lockdown. So again, I just want you to think about the words being used here, and you know, a little thing that you can do is just to replace them. Just replace them. Just think about, instead of enforce, think how different that sounds and the effect that it has on you when you hear something like UK to implement, you know, a potential lockdown, or to action a lockdown. You know, it's much less shocking, and it just means the same thing basically. You know, this language is used to shock, and yes, sometimes maybe we do need a shock and people need to get their message across, I agree, but I just want you to kind of rephrase things that you keep seeing until they don't feel threatening anymore, until they're desensitized. The other one today, being that is Mothering Sunday, is, you know, the PM warns people not to visit their family, like warns again. You know, that's like, oh, we're being warned, oh my goodness, you know, warning. Again, if you rephrase that, it could be PM tells, you know, tells people not to visit their mothers, PM advises against, you know, these, it all means the same thing, it's just a matter of phrasing. So that's definitely one thing that you could do, is when you're seeing things like that, just rephrase them. Every time you see breaking news come up, just take a second to say news. Like literally you're reprogramming your brain, right? Instead of going, oh my God, breaking news, and trying to, you know, look away or to read it or whatever, just take that second and just go, oh yeah, news, not breaking news. And just, you know, slowly, these things will become habit, and you'll retrain your brain to desensitize all these triggers. You know, enforces a lockdown, you know, just rephrase it. Take that second to say, implements a lockdown, implements staying at home, you know, things which are desensitized, you know, phrases, words which are desensitizing everything. Ultimately it's the same, means the same ultimately. So yeah, that's definitely something you can do. Another thing, if you think about it, is that we are being bombarded with so many different words to describe the same thing. So many different words to describe one thing or aspects of the same thing. So for example, coronavirus, the virus, epidemic, pandemic, disease, illness. Okay, so I mean, I'm sure we could go on with a massive list, I won't, but for example, every time your brain is being subjected to hearing repetition and new words to describe, even if it's the same threat, the same, you know, the same thing, your brain perceives that as a threat and more information to have to handle and more threats, whereas actually it's just the one same thing, right? But it's giving your brain enough, you know, other information to be triggered into thinking, oh God, now I've got to fight this off and fight that off. You know, we need to give our brains a break, you know? So again, as well, you know, we've got, you know, crisis, emergency, pandemic, you know, we've got like lists of things for ultimately the same thing. So something else that I would recommend you to do is to pick a word to describe, for example, coronavirus, right? You can pick it, you can make it as silly as you want, you can make it as random as you want, it can be absolutely anything, right? It can be germs, it can be anything from like germs to silly germs, or to like germs, or, you know, it can be just something, right? And every time you hear coronavirus, the virus, and disease and everything like that, I just want you to take a second and just rename that same phrase that's just been repeated in your head, but using your word, your one word that covers the coronavirus or whatever it is, okay? That way your brain is going to, you know, it's going to be desensitized, because you're not going to have your brain open to thinking, oh my goodness, now it's a virus, and now it's this, and now it's that, and that. You just got that one word. So pick your word, see what it is, and when you're listening to the news and it comes up, just digest that information, but doing it with the word that you've picked, okay? The other thing that you can do, something that's used in NLP, and this isn't just, I mean, these things are not just for, obviously, for coronavirus or the virus or the germs or the stupid germs or whatever it is you want to call them. Yeah, it's like a little thing you can do to desensitize images in your mind. When, you know, when we think about things, you know, an image gets triggered in our mind, and some of us are more visual than others, and some of us can really see things clearly, or some of us kind of feel things more clearly, or whatever. But one thing that you can do, and you can, I'll explain that now, and you can do it along with me, is another desensitizing technique. For example, think about a triggering, you know, something that is making you anxious, something that triggers you, for example, anything, and just take a moment to see what it looks like in your mind. Just take a moment to think about what it is. So what I'll do, you can do it along with me, or if you, sorry, I'm just going to get comfortable before I do this. I'm feeling jealous that my cat is so cozy on my bed. So yeah, so what you can do is do it along with me if you want, and then just do it in your own time. But for, yeah, just to make things easier, because I've been talking about it already, we can take this example of breaking news. So breaking news, okay, so I want you to get this image up in your brain of this. Just take a moment to see what it looks like. Okay, for me it is a red background, and it's like in a triangle, and I've got like big bold font there, like a big bold type, big bold letters in white, so I can see that quite clearly. I know what it looks like, I can see it. So yeah, the first thing is first, I am going to think about what it looks like. What are the colours there? How do I feel when I think about this thing? I'm going to think about where I can feel it, and at the moment I can just kind of feel it here, like in my solar plexus. I think that's what that is. I'm just going to think about how big it is, how near it is to me. Is it near or far? At the moment it's quite near. I'll show you, it's about here. It's quite near. So I'm just going to focus in and tune in on that for a moment. So you can do that along with me. You can use your own images. Breaking news. So the first thing about this is, and this is great if you are doing this with words, so the first thing, which is really good, you can find another word which is similar to replace it, which is similar, and it's just kind of, it can be funny, it can be silly, you know, it can be anything. For the purpose of this exercise, I am going to make it either making news or faking news. I would like to swear, actually. But yeah, I won't do that. But yeah, I could definitely think of something else. I'm going to go with faking news, okay? And I'm not implying that all that news is fake, because some of it's not, but just to desensitize it for now, just so it feels less dramatic. Just going to think of that now as faking news. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to change the font. So at the moment it's in big bold type. What I'm going to do is I am going to put it in some nice kind of calligraphy writing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that it's like a blank background and someone is just writing faking news really slowly. So I can imagine that, right? If I want to bring in some music with the calligraphy, I can, if you want to do that. It can be silly font, it doesn't have to be calligraphy. It's just because I just thought that's quite nice and fancy and much less dramatic, isn't it, than what we're seeing at the moment. You can put music into it, right? Then the next thing I'm going to do, now that I've got that picture, I'm just keep looking over there because I'm trying to imagine it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change it into black and white, right? So I'm going to take all the colour out of it. I'm going to just change it into black and white. And once that's changed into black and white, I am going to shrink that image down really fast, right to the corner of my eye, like, so it gets pushed away really far. And it's going to shrink so much that it's going to shrink into a little dot where I can't even hardly see any of the writing or anything. And once it gets shrunken into this little black dot, I'm literally just going to brush it off and just flick it away. So yeah, that sounds random, I know it does, but that is used in NLP. Some of it I kind of adapted some bits, but yeah, it sounds weird and it sounds random, but if you do that, if you just practice doing things like that with any triggers, or even things in real life, okay, if you've got an image, you know, that you're an anxiety, something you're worrying about, you know, bring that image up in your mind and gradually desensitize it by changing the colours, making it black and white, adding in some music, shrinking it down, shrinking it so it's so tiny, and then flick it away. And if you practice to do that a few times a day, your brain will start doing that automatically. You won't start feeling as stressed. You know, now I just look at breaking news and I just kind of, it doesn't really affect me, to be honest, not like it did before at all, because I've kind of applied these ways of just like lessening my anxiety. So yeah, that's definitely something you can do. Also, something else which is kind of interesting, it just came into my mind now about the breaking news. Can you imagine how much fake news has been shared and has just like stressed people out to the max? I mean, if I think about it, in view of this petrol pump thing that was going around, anyone can make up breaking news. Anyone, like, I challenge you to make up something ridiculous breaking news that's based on kind of half-truths. For example, we know that we've got to wash our hands, right? And we know that these germs live on surfaces. So therefore, we could create a story saying that we've gone to that you know, people that go to the shop to buy cat food, because the cat food is made of the boxes of cat food are made of cardboard, and because there's been a recent study about surfaces containing, you know, with the virus living on surfaces. By the way, I don't know anything about recent studies, but I know there's been various studies, but I'm just saying, we could then say therefore that cat owners really need to wash their hands when they come home, and that cat owners are at risk of catching the you know, these germs, this virus. And then I could create a story, and what I could do is I could put it on a red background, put loads of exclamation marks, could do all of that, and then I could share it, like just share it everywhere, all over the internet, on my social media platforms, send it to friends and be like, you own a cat, you need to look out for this. And you know, look at the damage that would have been done by that, all because someone just wanted to make up a breaking news, just maybe they had an article to write for a newspaper or something. Yeah, that just came into my head. I don't know why I thought of that just now about cat food. Anyway guys, listen, practice these little things. They seem random and weird at first, but once you start practicing, you'll start rewiring your brain to look at things differently, and you won't even need to practice anymore. You know, it will just happen automatically. You'll start feeling desensitized. I think, you know, these kind of things, when our community is going to be based a lot online now, I think these are quick fixes really. It seems like it takes ages, but it doesn't. It takes a few minutes and it's done. So good luck. Let me know if there's anything else that you practice. Obviously these things can be tweaked around and adapted to whatever feels good for you. We're all different and unique. But keep being good, you know, keep staying well, keep washing your hands, keep singing happy birthday, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening.